Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew. Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that will focus on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Good Tuesday morning, progressives, and welcome to the November 26th, 2024 edition of Choose Views at 773-763-9278. Give us a call. You can also text that line if you don't want to call. If you're sitting there, on your phone and you want to send a text to that number, send it, and Alex will let me know, and we'll talk about it. It's Facebook Live, TuneIn Radio, Twitter Stream, and, of course, iHeartRadio. Email me at richard@wcpt820.com. Now, I know that I have some clips that we played yesterday that I'm going to get out to everybody. Not to worry, haven't forgotten about you. There was a bunch of them, a lot of them. So I got a lot to get to. We'll get to those hopefully today and tomorrow. So you'll be armed with some additional stuff when you wake up on Thursday morning for Turkey Day. There you go. Catch all of our shows by subscribing to our WCPT podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. That's where you can find Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. Driving It Home with Patty Vasquez, of course, The Big Picture with Edwin Eisendrath, Out Chicago, and our other shows. And, oh, yeah, you can also find Choose Views there. It's a good place to go. That's where you can get the podcast. Check out our Heartland Digital platform, our Heartland Signal digital platform, because at heartlandsignal.com, there is lots of good stuff. So I want you guys to be able to go there and, as Alex says, share and share alike. Must do that. Please share. That's right. And give yourself a standing ovation if you do that. So, yeah, guys, we're off to a good start this morning, getting things rolling, getting the ball rolling. It's a little chilly out. Just to remind you, it's a little chilly out today. Some might say, Richard, it's cold. Just say it's cold. Well, I'm kind of warming you up to the fact that it's cold out. So, yeah, it's definitely one of those mornings. 27 degrees here in Chicago. Fortunately, the streets are dry. There's no snow or moisture on the roads for the most part. But still be careful when you're driving today. And most definitely, if you are commuting, please give yourself a little extra time. Maybe take a slightly earlier bus if you need to. Or best case scenario, if you're not taking a bus or public transportation or driving, whatever your method of getting to and from work, just be prepared. Put that extra set of gloves in your bag. And roll up an extra scarf and stick it in your bag and let it stay there till March if you have to. But you'd rather have it there than not have it and be out on a particular day and be, unnecessarily cold. You'll hear me say things like this until we get to March. Just want everybody to be safe and warm and protected when you're out and about. If you're in Chicago particularly, but if you're anywhere in the country where we get weather patterns that are changing on you, by all means, make sure you're prepared. And if there's anything you can treat yourself to, if you haven't done it yet, whether you're traveling, so this is two parts. Whether you've done this or not, if you're traveling or not, get your car in and just have them go through it and make sure that it's running okay. If you're driving, if you drive every day, just make sure that you've done that. Take some time, maybe on Saturday, maybe on Black Friday. Maybe your Black Friday thing to do is to take your car in and make sure it's running right. Alex is chuckling like, yeah, that's a different way to spend some money effectively. And by all means, if you're getting ready to go on a road trip, if you haven't done this by now, I'm going to be really PO'd at you. Please don't just get up tomorrow and get in the car and hit the road. Go out today and make sure your car is right. Fill up the tank today, not tomorrow. If you're leaving tomorrow, check the tires today. Turn it on and let it run. If you just do that, please do that for me. Because if you call me while I'm on, I won't be able to help you out. I'll be busy with family and stuff. So make sure your car is running right, Alex? I mean, just take a moment, guys. If you can get into the dealership, make sure it's good to go. If you're doing a road trip with the family, you don't want that to be the thing that detracts from your holiday weekend. And if you can't get to the dealership, maybe go to one of the local places in your neighborhood. If you got a gas station that has a mechanic there, or go to any of the local places. Just I'll beat it to death because I'd rather beat it to death than have you be out there stranded on the side of the road with the kids in the back of the car, or whomever in the car with you, just like grousing because they can't get to whomever's house for turkey and dressing and whatever else. So there you go. You know what I'm saying. You know how I roll in that space. Make sure you guys are prepared to get out. And in the commuting, same thing as if you're commuting to work by public transportation, just be safe. So there it is. There it is, boys and girls. Lots to talk about. We got some great guests that are going to be with us this morning. In the 7 o'clock hour, we will have I'm sorry. Get this. Do I have this right or wrong? I have this right. In the 7 o'clock hour, attorney Jeffrey Dillard from the Gen F Entertainment Poet group. He'll be with us, chatting up a little bit. And then in the 7:30 hour, we'll have Jeffrey Symons, who's a senior advisor with the Environmental Project Network. So both folks we look forward to chatting with this morning. Yesterday, I talked about a clip that we couldn't get I couldn't get my hands on quickly enough, but I did say I would have it and be able to present it to you guys today that I think that you'll want to hear. Got a nice, fun clip that we'll play later in the show about something that took place that I wanted you guys to hear as well. However, I did come across the clip that I was speaking about with Mr. Klitschko. So you guys will probably appreciate this one. But for now, let's turn over to some Choose Views news on this Tuesday, November 26th. The numbers to watch this week. Inflation is expected to be center stage, with the Federal Reserve's preferred measure forecast to show an uptick in price growth. The personal consumption expenditures index likely rose at an annual rate of 2.3% in October, up from 2.1% in September. And let's see, today being Tuesday, the Conference Board will release its monthly Consumer Confidence Survey, which measures how optimistic Americans are about the economy. The Federal Open Market Committee will release the minutes from its last policy meeting. The minutes are potentially will provide more information on future monetary policy. As we know, tomorrow, the 27th, the U.S. Department of Labor will release initial jobless claims for the previous week. Of course, that report is a proxy of layoffs, tracks the numbers of people who are filing unemployment benefits. The U.S. Census Bureau will also release its monthly report on durable goods orders, and the Bureau of Economic Analysis will release a second estimate of domestic gross product readings for the third quarter. And then the U.S. Department of Commerce will release its October personal consumption numbers, as we reported. Retailers are sweating Black Friday sales. What does that mean? Retailers are banking on Black Friday discounts to boost demand this year for budget-conscious shoppers who have cut back on non-essentials and other items in the wake of high inflation. Big-name stores have already been offering Black Friday, quote, deals for weeks, giving them more time to rack up sales, but potentially reducing the impetus for shoppers to pounce on limited time offers. While chains including Walmart and The Gap recently reported sales gains, others such as Target and TJX needed a little bit of a jolt. So the National Retail Federation has projected relatively slow holiday spending growth of 2.5 to 3.5%. So maybe people are spending their money on less items and saving more. Who knows? But it does seem like there's a concern from some of the retailers. All right, Starbucks. Next test, airport cafes. The to-do list for the new Starbucks CEO, Brian Niccol, is a long one. Speed up the drink-making process, bring back the condiment bar, and now slash wait times at the chain's airport locations. What's expected to be a record travel holiday season, could be the most important test for in-airport Starbucks, bringing much-needed revenue and a reputation boost to the struggling chain. Even customers who stopped going to the local Starbucks might visit one while traveling. The coffee giant has cafes in 47 of the 50th busy airports in the United States. Climate talks end with a $300 billion deal. The United Nations Annual Climate Conference concluded an 11th hour deal to provide at least $300 billion to help developing nations fight climate change. Far less than the 1.3 trillion they sought. 3 trillion, I should say, they sought. Some criticize the aid package as a paltry sum, but it's triple the previous $100 billion commitment and a base to build on, according to the UN Secretary Antonio Guterres. Macy's delays the results after this probe that took place. You guys heard about this after an investigation found one of its employees hid tens of millions of dollars in expenses. The employee, who was responsible for small package delivery expense accounting, intentionally hid up to $154 million of cumulative delivery expenses starting back in 2021, according to Macy's. The retailer instead issued preliminary results, which saw sales miss the Wall Street's forecast, and now plans to release its earnings a full year outlook on December 11th. Macy's is one of several companies that have faced problems with their financial statements amid a growing shortage of qualified accountants. Not enough people to count all those dollars. So there you go, guys. Some quick Choose Views news items this morning. And as I said before, we've got great guests today. We've got great clips and some stories we're going to get into. But for now, music is playing. We'll take a quick break. Number is 773-763-9278. We'll be right back.
It's Choose Views with Richard Chew on WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Hey, guys, welcome back to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. Great to be with you this morning. So, listen, it's become, a conversation point or a news item, whatever you want to call it, that Special Counsel Jack Smith drops the criminal case against Trump for the 2020 election subversion. Rightfully so. A lot of people are very upset about that, if not angry and PO'd about it. And I get it. Letitia James is holding strong in New York with the case that she brought, and that's a good thing. And Judge Merchan, did kind of put off the sentencing, but that's still out there. It hasn't been dropped. But in this federal case with Jack Smith, I think that, from what I'm understanding, he's trying to preserve as much as he can. Listen, you talk to various people who are in the legal profession, and they'll say that this really is not so much Jack Smith. Don't look at Jack Smith as a bad guy here, guys. Don't do that. And I'll tell you the reason why. The person, if you want to say, ultimately is responsible for this not getting prosecuted in a timely manner and done in a way that was the right thing to do for the country is Merrick Garland. And that really is where this is one of those, times where it'd be easy to say, let's jump all over Jack Smith and, get on his case. But that's really not where the ire should be directed, in my opinion, because Jack Smith was tasked with a duty to do something that nobody else was either willing to do or capable of doing. And he dove in deep, and he was ready to go. And then the Supreme Court said that the president is immune from whatever they wanted to say. So, they could do that kind of thing when you have a special counsel. But if it had been the attorney general that were leading the fight on this case, I doubt that the Supreme Court would have been so confident that they could pull that off. I don't know. I mean, it was a case that was taken to the Supreme Court, so they still could have ruled in the way in which they did. But part of the problem is that Merrick Garland waited too doggone long. Now, I'm not going to point too many fingers at President Biden. I think he knows that I think he could look back and say that having someone with more teeth that wasn't such an institutionalist and blah, blah, blah would have been a better choice. I'm sure that that's a conversation that he's had with his inner circle. I would think that he would have had it at least. However, once in the job, with all the information that was out there and with J6 doing what they were doing, that there's no way in heck that Merrick Garland should have waited as long as he did. And legal experts have been saying that for a long time. So at the end of the day, and one could say, respectfully to you guys, one could say, yeah, but then Biden should have fired him and replaced him with somebody else. you all know in the climate that we're in, that would have looked highly political. And then because of that, Attorney General turned around and pointed the ire appropriately to this criminal, Donald Trump, then people would have been all up in arms saying that the president was using the federal government to go after Donald Trump. Well, let's be honest, guys. The federal government can go after Donald Trump, should have been going after Donald Trump, because he is a criminal. He's convicted. He's not. I'm not going to say anymore. He's a criminal. He's a convicted felon for the acts that took place with regard to the 2020 election. He is in the hush money trial in New York. So we don't have to say it and then go allegedly. Nah, he got convicted and on other stuff. But staying on point about Jack Smith, what I just have to say is don't beat up on my man Jack Smith on this one, because Jack Smith got dealt a bag of doo-doo, and he made it. He did his best to plant the seeds, not to be gross, but he did his best to make something out of that manure that he was given. And Merrick Garland, in my lifetime, he's the worst. I mean, there's been some Republican attorney generals that did a better job for the country than Merrick Garland has. I mean, let me rephrase that. There have been some attorneys general that have been under Republican administrations that did a better job than Merrick Garland has done. I mean, I'm highly disappointed, but let's be honest, that's what we got. And to the extent that people are going to point fingers at President Biden on that, I get it. But so all I'm saying is it stinks that he's rolling up this case and dropping the case. And hopefully there'll be information that's preserved that can be made public. Don't know how that'll play itself out. And I'm doing what I can to listen to the legal experts that I do follow. But at the end of the day, don't beat up on Jack Smith, because he's not the one where your frustration should go. Ultimately, the frustration should go, if you want to really wind back the clock and reel this back in, it should go to the Republicans in the House and the Republicans in the Senate during the impeachment process, particularly the Republicans in the Senate. That's where, if you want to go back and look at frustration and where it should be placed, it should be there. Second to that would be, in terms of people that are part of the administration, it would be Merrick Garland. He just didn't do the job that needed to get done. And that's unfortunate, highly unfortunate, because I highly believe that if he had, then we wouldn't be dealing with the drama that we have coming up in this next administration. But that's, again, why we have to be united in this. If you can't be fighting with people about, we have to direct the energy toward the place in the direction that it should go. So just try not to spend a lot of your time being frustrated with Jack Smith. That's kind of what I'm saying. But I tell you, a group that you could be a little bit frustrated with. I don't know if we have this clip handy. Do we have the clip about pediatricians? Okay, yeah, I got a clip for you that I want you guys to hear. And in the meantime, this is a statistic or some data that came my way that you guys I think you'll appreciate this in the context of, who is it that's receiving certain benefits in the country. You'll always hear this story around, how much certain communities get all the benefits and all the the support and so forth and so on. But here's one that might really, open your eyes, and that has to do with Medicare. And a lot of folks don't know this, but when you think about Medicare benefits, you think about benefits that come from the federal government and from state governments. It's oftentimes you hear that and people go, well, those people are getting all of the stuff. And those people are defined behind closed doors as brown-skinned people, those that are not white. But in fact, when it comes to the racial and ethnic breakdown of Medicare recipients, and this is why a lot of people who, you heard there are a lot of people who voted to get rid of Obamacare, but we got to keep the ACA, not realizing that willful ignorance that's going to come back and bite them in the behind. The same thing is true about people who say, well, we need to get rid of those federal programs because, all those brown people are getting all the benefits. Well, here's the real numbers. In terms of the racial and ethnic breakdown of Medicare recipients, 73% of Medicare beneficiaries in the United States are white. 10% of Medicare beneficiaries are black. 9.4% of Medicare beneficiaries are Hispanic. Asian, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islanders are 4.4% of the Medicare beneficiaries. American Indian, I should say, and Alaskan Natives are a smaller percentage, less than 2%. And those that claim to be of multiple races make up less than that. 73%. Did you all hear that? 73%. Let me say it again. 73% of Medicare beneficiaries are white Americans. But yet, the people who get the most garbage thrown at them about you people, those people, they're getting all the free stuff and all the, we need to get rid of that. Well, in fact, the people who get the majority of the benefit are, folks that are not of color, if you will. People want to call people of color, black folks, Hispanic folks, Asian, Native, and Hawaiian folks. Collectively, we get less than a third. Frankly, just over 25% collectively as people of color get Medicare benefits by comparison. But yet, those are the people who decided that they were going to vote in a certain way. Many, largest percentage that voted for Trump the last 3 elections, who has made it clear that this is on the table. So for those people who want to say it was about the economy, really, it was about the economy. The economics of Medicare, okay, but at the end of the day, are you saying that you want to harm because 25%, just over 25% of Americans are that are the recipients of Medicare benefits are people that are of color. Because you don't want those folks to have access to benefits that will better their lives. And FYI, that also helps to strengthen the economy or keep the economy solid, maybe a better way of putting it. You'd rather cut your own wrist with that razor blade because you think that it's the others that are getting all the quote-unquote benefits, when in fact, you're in the crowd that gets 73% of those benefits. Shameful. Willful ignorance, y'all. Bias. It's going to get you. And all I can tell you is we've been trying to tell you for a long time, there are monsters in the closets. They're under the bed. Now they're in the sheets with you. You got to deal with them. 773-763-9278. We'll be right back.
It's Chew's Views with Richard Chew on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey guys, welcome back to Chew's Views, 773-763-9278. So I have 2 clips I want you guys to hear, then I'm going to grab a couple quick calls. People are talking about the impact in different categories or different silos of our society and our economy and all the things that we talk about. And this is the one clip that I just thought it's a short clip, but I thought it was pretty meaningful. And it's called Wake Up Pediatricians.
Good morning, pediatricians. Wake up. This is a 5-alarm fire we're dealing with, and we need to flood the zone with medically accurate information. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for an invitation. Don't wait for orders or directives from the powers that be. You have everything you need to start communicating, and you need to start doing it now. Think about it this way. If you saw a house fire, which in this case is RFK Jr. at the helm of HHS, and you are standing next to a fire hose, which in this case is your pediatrician brain, would you stand there and wait for the fire chief to tell you what to do? You would turn on the hose and point it at the fire. And that's what we need to be doing now. We have 0 time to waste.
Fire truck coming through.
Yeah, so pediatricians and other medical professionals, but particularly pediatricians as it relates to how Kennedy views what should be happening with safety for our children. And I came across that clip and I thought, yeah, it's a quick one, but yeah, wake up pediatricians. And if you have children, grandchildren, nieces and nephews, grandnieces and nephews, as my wife and I do, make sure that you're encouraging their parents to get their children in for checkups. Okay? I'm not a doctor. I'm just a concerned, baby boomer, Gen Zer, I should say. I'm a Generation J and boomer. It's kind of a little sliver age group of people who are baby boomers, but could be the child of the oldest baby boomer group. Anyhow, Generation J. That being said, my concern, that clip's important to me because of all of our children. So if you have children, or if you have nieces and nephews, if you have grands, whatever the case may be, or you're just a concerned person in the neighborhood that doesn't have children, but you are the grandmother on the street or the big uncle on the street, and you all know what I'm talking about, then, we got to make sure we get our children checked out. So if you can get them in to see the doctor before the end of the year, I would hugely recommend you do that. Okay? So, all right. So yesterday, there was a clip that I wanted you guys to hear that I spoke about, and it's one that really kind of, it kind of struck me in the way of, yeah, okay, if you're going to trash talk, I got something to say. And this is from the mayor of Kyiv in Ukraine, speaking to Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan, I listened to your latest podcast. I'm sending you this video to let you know that I disagree. You talk about these American weapons being sent to Ukraine, which you believe will lead to the Third World War. So, let me tell you that you're repeating Russian propaganda. Putin's Russia is in trouble, so they want to scare you and people like you. His war was supposed to last 3 days. It has lasted 3 years, thanks to the heroism and sacrifice of us Ukrainians. So you're using the only weapon that Putin really intends to use, propaganda. And this weapon really weakens our democracies. Putin's Russia wants to destroy Ukraine quietly. They want America to stay quiet, not great, but quiet. A great America is not an America that abandons countries that defend freedom with their lives. In short, you see, I have quite a few points of difference. If you invite me on your podcast, we could discuss them like free men.
Sounds a lot like Arnold back in the day. But yeah, I mean, he called out Joe Rogan for the garbage that he was throwing out about what Russia, how he views what Russia isn't doing to Ukraine, when in fact Russia attacked Ukraine, and he's out there with that same garbage propaganda. And I've heard a number of people over the last few days or since the election talk about how Joe Rogan he's flip-flopped in a number of different ways. But there you go. So just as I promised, I said I wanted to get that to you guys so you can have that one to hear. That's the reason. There is a reason that not just to play the clip, but there's a reason I wanted you guys to hear that one, and it is because we owe it to ourselves to stand up to the bullies. And right now we're in that space where we're going to have to do that a lot. And as I said last week, I was really, Alex, candidly looking forward to being at this point in my life chronologically and not having to have this sort of stress. Now, I know there's other people who feel the same way. And it was just like, okay, we're going to have a 4-year period of time where there'll be some of our regular, everyday political stuff that we're dealing with, but to not have to constantly be feeling like, what's the next stupid thing that the administration is going to do. And they're going to do a lot of stupid stuff. But what Mr. Klitschko is basically saying, and I'm an advocate of and for, is to stand up. Stand up for yourself and stand up for the people that you care about. Now, I said yesterday, and one of our callers, Pam, said, Richard, I'm not quite there yet, when I was talking about navigating Thanksgiving and the Thanksgiving weekend. And what I said is, if someone's saying something stupid or crazy or without any foundation, then, you may have to use the tool of asking them questions versus a direct confrontation. Now, I said that as a way of sort of keeping some of the peace, but also not getting stepped on by anybody by asking them to explain themselves, and inevitably their stupidity, their ignorance would come out. And I still believe that, and that's not going to change. But at the same time, I also said, and with Pam's great reminder, some people don't deserve that way of interacting with them. Some people need to, as I said, if they're acting too much of a fool, you may have to just stand up at the middle of dinner and call someone that name, i.e. the MFer. You may have to do that. But you may have to take a combination of Mr. Klitschko's approach and mine and blend the two together to let people know that you're not going to take it. It's just I'm very committed to making sure that we're protecting ourselves and that we're doing what he says and challenging people. If you want to have this conversation, we'll have it. For those of us that are going to be engaged with lots of folks during Thanksgiving, I'm just saying that if you find an opportunity to put someone in their place by asking them questions and pinning them down by making them answer intelligent questions, what you'll probably find is there's a lot of people who don't know what the hell they're talking about. And they don't realize that voting against getting rid of Obamacare is getting rid of the Affordable Care Act, which probably saved their life or somebody's life and their family. So, and many, 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 many other things. So just keep that in mind. All right, Alex, let's grab a couple quick calls. Let's go to my man, Kurt in Akron, Ohio. Good morning, Kurt. Welcome to the show.
Well, good morning, Richard, and thank you. Hey, real quickly, you know whose life was saved by the Affordable Care Act?
Donald Trump?
No, J.D. Vance's mother when she was in her drug use.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So that's the question. So that's a great 360 question. When someone's like, "Yeah, Trump, man, Trump and Vance," so we got to get rid of. First thing is get rid of Obamacare. Okay, well, do you know who's? And that's a great way of putting it. That's what I was trying to say. Ask the question. Someone says, "Get rid of Obamacare." Would J.D.
Vance's mother be alive today if it wasn't for the Affordable Care Act?
There you go. That's how you play it. You can bring a sledgehammer and you can bring a scalpel to the party.
Absolutely. Also, just, and you kind of stole my thunder a little bit.
No, I didn't. You got the mic.
Blame the Republicans thing a minute, is if Mitch McConnell would have been man enough to get 10 more Republicans in the Senate to vote to convict, Donald Trump would not be the president-elect today.
And what's great, what's so interesting about that is you all don't get upset with me for what I'm about to say. I've got to believe there's a part of Mitch McConnell and his wife that go, God, we got it. This guy's going to be a disaster for us, even though he's a Republican. They've got to be thinking, all of us are going to go through some hell. I'm going to continue to catch hell from people who recognize that what we're going through now is painful, and in his state particularly. So you're right.
You mean the most welfare receiving state in the country?
Yeah. I mean, medical. Let's go down the path that you were headed, so that you can still keep your thunder. Imagine the medical benefits that could get cut with RFK in the role that he would be in, and how many people in the state of Kentucky are going to be immediately impacted by that.
You know what I'll say to that? Remind people, because we're not that far removed. Yeah, 100 years seems like 11 billion years ago, but 100 years isn't that far removed from the realm of history. Remind people just what was it like before FDR's New Deal or John Kennedy starting it and Lyndon Johnson passing it, Medicare, because prior to FDR and Truman and Kennedy and Johnson putting all that stuff into place, it was falling onto the responsibility of the eldest son in the family to take care of not only his family, but also his aging parents, because our elderly, prior to the New Deal and Social Security in 1935, yes, folks, 1935, we're living in abject poverty and dying without dignity. At least people had the ability when Social Security came into effect. Now, I will say the life expectancy. That's why they chose 65 as a life expectancy back then was 68 years old. They didn't expect you to live to be 90 to 100 years old after retirement. But that's what it's going to come down to. And I hope you sandwich generation people out there are ready and prepared to start taking care of your parents, and you better start making sure your houses are handicap accessible and your parents have the ability to get up and down the stairs to go to the bathroom for something so simple. So that's what you're looking at. If Congress bends to Donald Trump and Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk's will when it comes to making these $2 trillion cuts, which, by the way, that's all smoke and mirrors because Congress does have to, pass that legislation because Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy just can't flash a pen across and say, oh, Medicare's cut, Medicaid's cut. That's got to be appropriation with Congress. So keep that in mind. And with Congress having just a slim 2 or 3 majority with the Republicans over the Democrats, that's not going to be easy for them.
Well, you know why it's not going to be easy? It's not just the votes that's not going to make it easy. Like literally, if everybody were, and I didn't mean to talk over you. If left and right, the Democrats and the Republicans went straight party line on that, and it was and that's the perception of what would happen. The perception of that is that everybody fought for their respective parties. But what's going to actually happen is there are going to be people who live in districts that are going to be critically harmed by that type of defunding, if you will. And
here's the dirty secret. Here's the dirty secret, folks. Old people vote.
Yeah, and in those districts, Kurt, those people are going to be speaking. I have to. I'm not being hopeful here. I'm looking at the numbers.
You're being a realist.
I'm being a realist. People are going to go, wait a minute, hold on. I don't like. They could list a lot of things that they could say. The Democrats are awful here, but in this particular space, you're telling me, my Republican elected member of the House of Representatives, you're going to cut my ability to, feed myself.
And here's the funny thing, and here's the great thing that Obama always talked about, is he would hear people, especially elderly people, say, I hate national health care, I hate universal health care, but don't you dare cut my Medicare. What exactly is Medicare? But on a fun note, the reason I called is I did my interview yesterday. And I will probably know something by Christmas, but what I was going to say is my mother gave me advice and said, make sure you talk like you talk with Richard Chew and sound somewhat intelligent.
Well, that is what we call partnership, my man.
And that's called a mother's endorsement.
That's right. Kudos to mom. Right on. All right, Kurt, listen, man, we got to go to the break. Thanks for calling in, brother. Good to hear from you, man. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
773-763-9278. Guys, we'll be right back.
Welcome back to Chew's Views with Richard Chew on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey, guys, welcome back to Chew's Views, 773-763-9278. So, the point that Kurt made, which is so well taken, is, the finger pointing towards people of different communities, whether they be LGBTQ, whether they be folks in the African-American community, folks that are in Hispanic community, the Asian community, are not the largest recipients of the Medicare benefits. It's just not the case. And to that end, when we look at, and this was just sent to me, we look at the Medicaid recipients, those numbers still don't, and speaking specifically to the African-American community, which we get othered so often in the Asian community, we're not the highest recipients of the Medicaid programs. So, just be mindful of the finger pointing and the whole conversation around those people and those other folks over there. By and large, what happens is people become fearful and that gets exploited. And then those communities who are in those folks that are in those communities get further exploited. And that's what happened during this election, is that a lot of finger pointing, a lot of others, those people are bad, they're awful, they're coming to take your stuff. Well, in fact, that's not the case. And it didn't happen, hasn't happened. I mean, let's just look at this for a second. When did a mob of black folks and and or Hispanic folks and or Asian folks get together, those three communities of color, get together and go into a white neighborhood and starts tearing stuff up. Can anybody name when that's happened? I mean, a predominantly or only white community where they came in and took your stuff. Now, we know that we've had bad acting kids come downtown Chicago and act a doggone fool, but we've had bad acting kids of all communities. I've gone to the suburbs and seen some pretty, bad acting suburban white kids acting a doggone fool. Just as much as I've seen during COVID, young black kids coming downtown acting stupid. That happens. Kids are going to do stupid stuff. That doesn't mean that the community is bad. I've seen it in every community. I've been around. I've lived in a lot of different places, y'all. I've said this before. Name 5 people that you know. And I've asked this question not to be a jerk, but I've done it out of a point of saying that I've experienced our country and I keep my passport active. I have spent at least 3 days in every state in the United States of America, all 50 of them. And Puerto Rico, I've been there twice. Okay, I haven't been to Guam, but I've spent 3 days in every one of our states. So I've seen all the behaviors and all the whatevers of all of our communities. So no one can say to me, well, Richard, you don't know what it's like. Okay, maybe I don't know what it's like because I don't live there, but I've spent 3 days at a minimum. That was my qualifier. So I've been to every state in our country. And I will tell you, there ain't folks of a particular community that's coming in and taking people's stuff. We've had folks migrating to this United States of America since we were before the United States of America. And so we now, those communities who've attempted to divide us, we can't let that happen. We have to point out the things that are problematic, but we can't let these sort of breakdowns or attempts to break down our communities have any strength, because we have to fight back against this fascism from the communities of color, along with our brothers and our Caucasian brothers and sisters. So my constant ongoing commentary is going to be about finding the information, finding the data, presenting it to you that says we get to stick together. We don't get to allow them to pull us apart. Not going to happen on my quote unquote my watch. My watch being an American citizen that's not going to allow that to happen. Not going to happen. So don't let the talk about benefits and all this other garbage and stuff, things that they say people are taking away or the others are getting, take you away from being connected to the people that are in your community, greater community, and national community. Don't let it happen. All right, we're going to grab another quick call before we get to the top of the hour. Let's go to Reese in Hazelcrest.
Good morning, Richard. How you doing?
Good, Reese. Welcome to the show. And how are you doing? Man. I'm sorry. And how are you doing this morning? Apologize for that.
I'm cool. I'm above ground, so I'm good.
There you go.
But let me say about this election, man. I think our democracy is over. I hate to be doom and gloom, but if this election stays with all the interference from Russia, all the burning of the mailbox, all the bomb threats and everything, if this election goes through without a recount to find out where all these votes went, all these people stood in line to register, all these women, all these people, immigrants, everybody lining up to register to vote, and 10 to 15 million people don't show up, I don't believe that. I don't believe it. And we taking the words of a known con artist, a known liar, a rapist, twice impeached, 34 felonies on him, and we're going to take his word that this election was fair and free? No. This election, man, the federal government needs to get involved. They need to make elections, everybody take a day off to vote, and it should be a mandatory for elections because, like I said, I hate to say it, if this election stands without a recount, I think our democracy is over.
Well, Reese, first of all, thanks for your contribution to the show this morning. And you're not gloom and doom. I don't take it that way at all. I mean, sometimes you got to be, popped upside the head a little bit to get your attention. And so I respect where you're coming from in that space. It's not gloom and doom. I will say this in partnership with what you just said. I have had questions since the Thursday, 2 days after the election. because of some of the things. And the one thing that I'm slightly hanging my hat on about curiosity is what went down in some of those areas where there were bomb threats. And then I can't really say ironically, but suspiciously, those were certain areas where the counts didn't make sense. And what's the definition of didn't make sense? Something felt hinky because people who were on point in those counties were questioning how certain votes didn't get counted. And that's why I'm with you. I'm not going to go down the road of the conspiracy thing and all that. I'm not going to use those words. I'm just going to say, why would we not, when there's issues, noted issues, verifiable issues, have a recount? And so I agree with you in that space. Hell, if Trump could throw all this garbage in 2020 at the table with all these, supposed these cases, 62 were dismissed or whatever. The Democratic leadership sure as hell can say, well, wait a minute, we got some issues here. We need to look into it. And that's not playing the game of, they stole, all that garbage about they stole the election. It's like, let's just look at this and see something doesn't seem or feel right.
Yeah.
So, not gloom and doom, Reese. Your brain is working, and you're saying, hold on a second, something just doesn't seem right here, and we need to look into it. I completely understand where you're coming from, and I've done my emailing to various people and in leadership to say, hey, this is what I'm concerned about. So I've put some things out there in my private time to say, don't walk away from this just because you don't want to upset the apple cart. Knock the damn thing over if it needs to be. I'm okay with that.
Me too.
Yeah.
Well, man, thank you. Have a good morning. Good day.
You getting ready for Thanksgiving? You guys, you and your family?
Yeah, we are.
Good. Well, listen, man, whatever you do, be safe, enjoy yourself. And as I say, pull your shoulders back, man. We're going to get through this. I mean,
all right, man.
All right, Reese.
Yeah, you do the same. Have a great holiday.
I will. You too. Thanks for the call. Listen, we'd be stupid, or maybe not stupid. That's not the right word. We'd be irresponsible to not look at a situation when it's being noted that there's some issues. There's everything right with doing that because that's part of the responsibility of the democracy. And I have those moments too where I'll sit and go, if we don't look into these things, at what point will it be too late? And the too late dates, there's 3 dates that are too late dates: December 11th, December 17th, and of course Inauguration Day. So that's kind of where we are in that space. So I think that Reese is right. We have to have the folks. We have to encourage the folks that have the ability to look into these things to continue to do that. And I try not to get into the conspiracy conversation as much as we should have recounts where recounts are valid and where recounts are necessary. So hopefully that's going to be hopefully that is what leaders are doing in the Democratic Party and Democratic leadership of the party. So that's the fingers crossed moment, I guess you could say. All right, guys, we're coming to the top of the hour, and we're going to take a quick break because when we get back, we should be talking to some people that are going to be guests on the show. So there you go. 773-763-9278. We will be right back.
Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew. Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that will focus on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Hey, guys, welcome back to Choose Views, 7 o'clock hour, 773-763-9278. We'll give some quick shout-outs, of course, to my WCPT Progressive lineup, the Stephanie Miller Show, my radio sister on the West Coast, Tom Hartman Show, Professor of Everything, Progressive, Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive, and Patty Vasquez, my bookend, Driving You Home. I love my folks, so I got to give them their shout-outs. And, of course, over at Heartland Signal, got to check out some of the articles and posts that we have over there. And it's interesting with this Hegseth nomination and Getz's bowing out. It just goes to show that the best and the brightest are not the ones that Trump is selecting. And so, you can find some more information about that over at Heartland Signal, and who's writing various articles and different posts. So check us out over at the Heartland Signal digital platform that we have, and share with folks that you know out there. Joan's got Turi was sitting in for Joan yesterday, and I'm not sure, I think again today. And of course, Patty's got great guests as always. So check out our other shows here on WCPT's daily broadcast. Okay, so I'm a music guy, love music, love all kinds of music, and favor of certain types more than others. I'm also one that appreciates when you can merge politics and social issues and music and poetry and literature all together. They do come together. If you think of some of the great poets of our time and some of the great literature folks of our time, they oftentimes spoke about social issues, political issues, economic issues. Some of the greatest songs that have been written, I think about Marvin Gaye's song, What's Going On, talks about that. And in the lyrics, you hear him talk and ask questions about where we are. And so to that end, we were fortunate enough to have one of those folks locally here in Chicago be with us this morning, a.k.a. Janef, if I'm pronouncing correctly, the poet, with us here on Choose Views this morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Richard. How are you? And good morning to your audience as well.
I'm doing great, man. I mean, this is a first time for the two of us, but I'm glad we were able to get connected. And I looked at some of your stuff, and I was like, man, I'm thinking about the many great poet, music artists of many generations that have spoke to issues, but also been able to bring some great songs and art to the community. So tell us a little bit. Tell the audience. I mean, I don't like to over introduce somebody. I like to let you talk about who you are, where you're coming from, and how that's so relevant right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you said before, I'm hail from Chicago, a proud graduate of the public school system here, also an HBCU grad, and also have done some things professionally in my life, and it all sort of comes together sort of in a holistic 360-degree way as it relates to my music. So I do spoken word, but I do it in a way that hopefully even if you're not sort of a fan of that genre, that you can hear something there that will speak to you, or you just might like the beat and like to move along, or whatever the case may be, and that's a good thing too. So all my music really is about love and liberation. And I just think that encompasses everything that I want to do, and use this platform to help move our community and our people in the most positive way that I possibly can.
Well, the HBCU that you attended was, of course, Florida A&M University, and so folks need to know about that. But let me drop a few things on you guys real quickly. For those of you, and I said this as my intro to Jeff is to talk about something that a lot of people may not always realize. A lot of the music that we listen to, in fact, most music that has lyrics to it, everything is lyrical, but then there's lyrics inside of music. And so if you listen to the cadence of the songs that you like the best, they are poetry with music, with instrumentation sort of mixed into it. And I'm not oversimplifying it. I'm trying to make a point about historically that's always kind of been the way with lyrics, is that there's a poetry element to it. Am I far off the beat? No pun intended.
No, no pun taken. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, you cannot tell me that Smokey Robinson was not a poet or is not a poet.
Or that David Bowie isn't a poet.
Absolutely. And it's really more about taking what's in their head and what's in your heart and what's in your spirit and choosing the different ways to express it to the world. I mean, some people do it. Some very, very strong songs don't even have lyrics, but they're still saying something because you can sort of feel it in your heart and soul, if you would, and the whole purpose is to let people know what's on your heart and to hopefully to move them in a positive direction.
One of the things you just said that music may not have lyrics necessary or words, but more specifically, I've always gone off of the wording, the messages in the music, and irrespective of what the type of music is, because if it moves you in a certain way, then that's a good thing. And so, I've always wanted to know, for someone like you who actually writes and puts something out there, what is it? What are some of your driving forces? What are some of your influences in that space?
Yeah. I think it's a conglomerate of all of my life experiences, from school to personal life, to my mom and dad, to my old neighborhood, the things that I have seen, the places that I have gone, and the struggle of various people groups, including Black people in America. That's sort of what continues to feed me. I was writing poetry, for as long as I can remember, at least back to the third or fourth grade. So I always had something sort of inside of me that needed to come out, and it was always almost a natural thing for me to put it in a way that I thought that people would receive better. So sometimes it is your cadence, it is the word you use. Sometimes it's the rhyme pattern, and so you just want people to sort of live in your words, if you would. And if you can think about your favorite songs or your favorite tunes, you indeed sort of lose yourself in them, and at least for a moment, you're transported into a place that that you are not ordinarily in. It may take you back to childhood. It may make you think about your first girlfriend. All those things and all those experiences that have gone into my life, and my education. Those tend to be my influences.
Well, here's kind of a statement and a question. I mean, you've been influenced and give leanings to the great Gil Scott-Heron, the Last Poets, folks like Nina Simone.
Absolutely.
And so, I mean, obviously those are influences that you speak about and the stories that they told inside of their music. Tell us a little bit more about how they have influenced you.
Yeah. Their music and their art was just so personal and so real, and everything that I write or attempt, I want it to be personal and real, and there's literally things that I will write about that sort of. You don't always want to be as transparent as you propose to be, but in that transparency, I have found that that's what helps people relate to your music. And so, like you said, from the Nina Simone's and Last Poets and the Gil Scott and the Marvin Gayes and the Sam Cooks and all of those people, how they had a realism there, and that's what really influenced me. Plus their music, the sound, the sonic sound of what they produced was so great, and I would not even propose that I am in that category of greatness, but those are the people who have inspired me.
Well, I'm always looking at things from an aspirational standpoint. On this show, we talk a lot about politics, whether they be local, regional, national, and sometimes even global events. And if there's one thing that is connective tissue in that space is music. And, you go to any party of any group, you're going to hear the music of the group that's the dominant, folks that are there. So it could range from classical to country and western to, everything in between. So even in our heavily dosed political environment that we have right now, music is a thread line between all of us. And how do you sort of integrate that in terms of talking about politics?
Yeah, well, some of it, I always say I try to that I don't purposely talk in riddles. That's actually in one of my songs. But in some cases, I picture it as a fruit tree, and that the best fruit is at the top of the tree because it's closest to the sun. And so I try to get people not just to get the low-hanging fruit or the fruit that is falling on the ground, but to reach up and get that fruit. Other times it's very practical. So I have said we elect politicians, good ones few. They think it's the game of life, but they ain't got a clue. So in some cases, there's a little bit of mystery in there, and then there's a little bit of some metaphors in there and some analogies in there, and so I hope people have to listen to my music literally more than once, and listen and say, you know what, I didn't catch that part. I didn't get the part about the game of life and Clue, and those are old school games and things of that nature. So it's interesting. I have people say, man, I listen to whatever song again, and I just caught what you said after having listened to it several times. So I always like musicians that can write things and where you can hear them and they sort of attach to you and they start to grow on you based on your life experiences. I think that's what the good artists do.
Yeah, and that's the aspirational part of what you're doing. You're always striving to, and I take this on, try to wear this coat myself, always striving to make it better for the people that, because we're kind of in a role of service, I think. I believe I'm in a role to serve those who listen and watch the broadcast. Yes. And to the extent that I can do that, I'm constantly aspirational about how can I make this better. And you, in some ways, are in a similar role where you're serving the community that listens to you, and you're always trying to find a way to make the next thing better. Would that be a fair way to say that?
Oh, more than fair. I'm never satisfied. And even when we record, we have to stop recording, but we're never finished, so to speak. And then even when you take a song, that's why sometimes the live performance tends to be different because the artist has grown with the song as well. So I may have recorded it 5 months ago, but by the time that I'm performing it, there may be something different that has happened in the world. In one of our songs, I say, did I hear you singing My Country 'Tis of Thee? I heard you had a kickback on the steps in D.C. Never heard so many losers yelling victory. Your lies are a rap. I'm gonna call you sucker MC. So that's January 6th.
Yeah.
Right there. And so it's just interesting now, obviously, after the election and that sort of thing, sort of that whole thought and that whole situation sort of has come to the fore again, and so those words might take on or have taken on possibly a little different meaning.
Yeah, good point. And the introspection there, and the talking about the kind of the through line of from recording in studio to doing something live or perform, there can be some changes because there's growth that takes place in that period of time. Let me ask you a couple comments I want to make, and then a couple questions. So yesterday, we played a tiny little clip. We don't play a lot of music on the show that's of artists, but every now and again I'll drop a few seconds, and we played a little bit of Take 5 because yesterday was Paul Desmond's birthday. The late Paul Desmond. And so influences like that are there and strong for me, and the Dave Brubecks of the world and all that. But we lost Quincy Jones week before last. And tell me, being a Chicago guy, because he's from Chicago, people don't realize that. Right. What, if any, influence Quincy's legacy and lifelong of music had an impact on you? Greatly. A couple of things that I admired about Quincy Jones. One is that that he studied, and he even when he was at a level that some people would be satisfied at, he continued to study and to grow and to get better. So I admire that about him. But in addition to that, he was also able to adjust. So he went from being a musician playing in the band or in the orchestra to the conducting part. Once he had I believe it was a brain operation, right? And he couldn't play anymore. So he adjusted. That in of itself is a life lesson. Sort of back to the who moved my cheese. You can't keep going back to the same place expecting the same things, and sometimes you have to move over or go lower or go higher or go around or whatever the situation presents itself. And then the third thing about Quincy Jones is he was able to be adroit at several different areas of entertainment. Yep. So he did television, he did movies, he scored motion pictures. He owned a label. He discovered people. So I kind of like that. He had a magazine publishing for back in the early 80s. Yeah, Vibe. Yes. So he was universal. I would say, and sometimes we can this whole conversation around who's the GOAT in different sports. But in my experience, and I had to put it that way, he was the most influential musical person in my lifetime. Now, I'm not going to go down the GOAT conversation and all that, right? But he was the most influential musical person in my lifetime because to your point, he was so able to adjust and see the different things and ways that he could have influence, and even in politics. And so, to that end, I really applaud his work. Listen, man, you and I are going to have more conversations, and the limited amount of time we have today, I wanted to ask you one kind of final couple of questions. Yeah, absolutely. What's happening for you with future stuff that you're working on? I know that Love and Liberation is sort of the highlight in the headline, but what do you have coming up that folks need to know about? Yeah, so as you mentioned, Love and Liberation
is my latest album or EP, and we actually have vinyl for love and liberation. So all of you people who love that, you get a different texture and sound when you're playing a phonograph record. And for some of the younger generation, you ought to try it. You'll get a different feeling from that. But we obviously it is you can purchase it or listen to it on all the streaming platforms as well. And in addition to that, getting ready for the new year, we've got some dates. I know we're doing Austin and Austin, Texas, I think in February, and Atlanta, I believe, in December. So we're always preparing for the next, while we're also working in the present and writing. Sometimes I'll get up at 4:00 in the morning and just write because it's quiet then. So look for me around Chicago as well. And we're just looking for a great new year.
Absolutely. Last thing, tell folks how they can find you.
Absolutely. Instagram is Janeff, JANEFF _the_poet. Janeff the Poet on Instagram. If you want to purchase the album, you go on Instagram. You can get that information as well. And then my website is thepoetjaneff.com, and I love to interact with my audience, and we kind of go back and forth and talk about some political themes and different things about the music, and it's just interesting to see how one piece of art can influence different people in different ways.
Absolutely. Well, listen, man, it's been great having you with us this morning. We will definitely talk again. And I agree with you. We have to do everything we can to make sure that we have a great new year in this crazy environment that we're in. We stick together. We pull together for each other to make things a little bit better.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, and everybody have a happy holiday season.
You got it, man. Thanks for being with us. Have a great day.
Okay. All right. Bye now.
All right, folks. Well, every now and again, I see the intersections of the things that we do. And as he spoke about in terms of the good poets in their ways of writing and creating their art, every now and again they lean over into the political conversation. And I think that's one of the things that we can't we have to realize and can't look away from, that our conversations oftentimes that are connective tissue conversations can sometimes come down to something like music and the arts and the message that's inside of the art. So kudos to Brother Jeff for being with us this morning. All right, guys, it's coming to the midpoint of this second hour of the show. We're going to take a quick break. The number, of course, as always, is 773-763-9278. We will be right back.
You're listening to Choose Views with Richard Chew on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey, guys, welcome back to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. Always like to add a little flavor to what we do and talk about here on Choose Views, and that's why it was great to have Jeffrey Dillard, a.k.a. Janeff the Poet, with us this morning. Great interview and showing the intersection of music and art into politics and some of our social conversations that we must have. And that's kind of what we try to do here, trying to keep it that way for you guys. And in that, of course, when we talk about social issues and we talk about political issues, we always, we've got to lean into something that I think is going to be critically important as we go forward in these next 4 years, particularly. And that's what's happening with our environment. I am probably, I'm as no better or no worse than the next person when it comes to doing things that are positive or not negative for the environment. I do my best at recycling, and I say I do my best because I don't always, strike it perfectly. I am a guy that likes to turn the water off when it's not necessary to have it on. I don't like to water the grass when it's hot out. kind of senseless. Wait till it cools down. I don't sit with the car idling, little basic things like that. I don't top off my gas tank. That's not a good thing to do for the environment. What else do I try to do? I do my best at planting grass and things that are going to grow and help with photosynthesis. What else do I do to help with the environment? I try my best to make sure that I don't throw away a lot of stuff that improperly. If you're going to have to get rid of certain things, take it to a refuge center. So I do the things that I can say are good, but I also know that there's always room for improvement. So that's why we have professionals though that are doing this in a way where they're trying to teach and expand the conversation around our climate policy and making sure that our environment is strong. So this morning, we're blessed to have with us someone that probably is good in all those spaces that I just listed, probably a little bit better than I am, but definitely as a professional, Jeremy Symons, who's with us this morning from the Environmental Protection Network, does it for a living to help keep us in a better environment as best he possibly can. Jeffrey, welcome to the show this morning. Jeremy, I'm sorry, welcome to the show this morning.
Oh, that's all right. Good morning, Richard. Appreciate, everything that you do.
Well, listen, man, I'm the first to tell you that sometimes I don't dispose of things the way that I should, and I'm mindful of it. But then I think, all right, well, what can I do over here? If I drop the ball over here, how I, did this, maybe I can, let's make sure to turn the lights off when we don't need them. And little basic things. And I kind of go back to when I was growing up in the late 60s, early 70s, a lot of the things that we were mindful of, like don't walk out of a room and leave the light on if you're not going to be in that room. It's a small thing, but it's a big thing, and just the list goes on of some micro things that we can do. But if you could, I definitely want people to know who you are and a little bit about your background and what you're currently involved in. So tell us and tell our audience a little bit more in that space.
Sure. Well, I appreciate it. I mean, you're doing the two most important things, which are, one, you're thinking about it, and two, you're talking about it. And, that's a big start right there in addition to the action. So, yeah, I work with a group called Environmental Protection Network. I worked at the Environmental Protection Agency under President Clinton and under President George W. Bush. And Environmental Protection Network is a network of former EPA officials and staff, scientists, experts that some of us continue to work, like myself. Many of us are retired, but we care so much about the job that we continue to just push for the mission of EPA, which is to promote public health in the environment. We talk about the environment, but a lot of this is about public health and protecting us from toxic chemicals, protecting clean air, protecting clean drinking water.
So you have, since this election, had some overwhelming support, and this, so at least according to the polls that show that there's an overwhelming support for the EPA and the work that they've got to do with this incoming administration. What are going to be some of the challenges that you think that both you guys at EPN and the folks at the EPA are going to be facing?
Well, the good news is that there's strong public support for EPA because we all breathe the air, we all drink water. It doesn't matter who you voted for. Heading into Thanksgiving, there isn't much on the political sphere that's easy to talk about at the extended family table necessarily. But environment is actually one of them. We did a post-election poll that we had in the field like the day after the election. We put it forward. We wanted to understand what people really understood, and the news is really encouraging. 86% of all voters, just think about, you don't poll anything, get 86%. 86% of all voters oppose attempts to weaken EPA, and that includes 76% of voters who supported Donald Trump. And so that's the good news, right, is there's really strong public support for EPA and protecting communities, Chicago, and across the nation. But the bad news, of course, is that we've seen this act before. Donald Trump tried to really dismantle EPA in the first term, and his picks and what we've heard suggest he's going to try again.
So this is I'm going to ask a question, and it may sound silly and it'll be hard to ask, but I'm going to ask you as a professional, what's the value of any elected official taking guardrails off of the thing that we all share, which is, or the agency? I mean, how I don't know how you can even answer that, but help me in my struggle. What's the advantage of that?
Yeah. It's really, it doesn't make sense, does it? But, I'm in Arlington, Virginia here near Washington, D.C. I've been working on environmental issues since I left EPA. And frankly, every day I go and do battle with some lobbyists for corporate polluters. And they have incredible, strength, power, and reach, and have embedded, pretty strongly in some parts of the power structure here, for sure. And look, Donald Trump went and had dinner with, oil executives and asked them for $1 billion, for his campaign. And in exchange, he said he would roll back a lot of the Biden administration's, policies. Those aren't partisan policies, but we don't know how much money they spent on the election. There's so much dark money out there that we can't actually accurately track it. But there's definitely an element here that corporate polluters are being handed the keys to EPA, and there's a lot of talk. They understand the public doesn't really support it, so you hear Trump talk about clean air and clean water, but there's nothing to suggest in the appointments that we've seen that he's going to deliver on that. Instead, we definitely are preparing for him to try to dismantle the agency again. And frankly, the fight to save EPA is on.
So what are some of the tools that are in your tool without sharing some things that maybe you can't share, but what are some of the tools that are in your toolkit? And the reason I'm asking the question that way is because there's a lot of Americans that they're like, what do I do to fight back right now other than protest, and I think that there's a little bit of a feeling from some people, and I'm not being negative here, I'm just saying what I'm hearing from my callers and from people from all over the country. There's a little bit of a tinge of hopelessness or paralyzation might be even a better word. So what are some tools that you, in the role that you have and the experience that you have at fighting back, with that regular everyday folks can say, all right, I heard what Jeremy said, and doggone it, that's what I'm going to do too?
Yeah, that's a great question. And our approach is very transparent. Like we have experts, and we're just going to tell the truth as we see it, regardless of, we did it during the Biden administration, we'll do it during, Trump administration. We're going to keep an eye on what happens at EPA and let folks know. But I think these poll numbers sort of reveal the path forward pretty clearly, which is Donald Trump and his administration are going to rely on distraction and deception to pursue an extreme agenda at EPA. And, those I think our best potential allies are frankly those who may have supported, Trump. Maybe they supported Biden or Obama before, but they voted for Trump, for whatever reason. That's part of the power base that they're counting on. And they need to know what's going on. Let me give you one example. Russell Vought. Trump just named him over the weekend to be head of OMB. He was caught on video by ProPublica, a private speech that he gave. It was a video of him talking about their goal. Their goal is to traumatize the staff at EPA. He used the word traumatize the staff at EPA so they don't want to come into work every day. I mean, that's how extreme this agenda is. And finding a way to remind folks of the importance of what EPA civil servants do when they show up to work every day and, keep tabs on polluters and keep tabs on the latest science, look at those toxic chemicals that are popping up that, you might be worried about on any given day. I think finding a way to have a real conversation, without preaching on this, to make sure we bust through some of those bubbles of information. Because Trump, when he introduced his EPA pick, for example, Lee Zeldin, he said he was going to enforce the highest standards on the environment, even as he rolled back dozens of regulations that were put forward under Biden. But let me tell you something. Those regulations are going to prevent more than 100 million asthma attacks. You can't roll them back and not have people we know who suffer from asthma, suffering from, worse air pollution. So we got to find a way to bring that home and bring that information to people. Information's our greatest, asset here.
So to that end, and first of all, Jeremy, thank you for breaking that down. But more importantly, in terms of thanking you, I think the underbelly of what you said is people need to stay plugged in. People need to stay aware and not go to sleep. I know that after a traumatic event or a good workout, you want to get some rest, and I get that. So this has been one hell of a workout the last 2 years and the last year and the last 6 and 3 and months and all that. But people have to stay plugged in. People have to stay on point and be aware because it does matter. And to your point, that's what I try to do is make it personal. And asthma is personal. Yeah. That's something that impacts so many people. So as we go forward with that, help us understand in areas that are not just EPA, but areas that are going to be basically parts of Project 2025. What are some of your recommendations to folks to be involved in all that will be happening?
Well, look, we gotta start with the basics, right? Which is Congress is supposed to be a check on the most extreme expressions of power from the president, and we know that's going to be challenged in ways we haven't seen before. But let me share a good news story. So in Trump's first term, he tried to cut EPA's budget by a third in the first year, and he planned on slashing it further in subsequent years. And Congress stopped that. And there was actually a vote to implement Trump's budget cut to EPA. It was just a straight-up vote in the House. And 75 Republicans, fully one-third of the House GOP delegation, voted against that. And, of course, all Democrats voted against it. Now, that should have been like 535, right? That should have been 100% said, no, that's a dumb idea. And it's a shame that we got into a point where that isn't there. But it was enough, and there weren't that many issues where you had that kind of bipartisan opposition to what Trump was trying to do. So I think we have to educate others, and we have to educate our members of Congress. And, that includes both members on both sides of the aisle. I mean, Democrats have done really significant work. When the appropriations bills are passed, those have to be bipartisan bills. They still have to get 60 votes for appropriations bills in the Senate. So Democrats have a really strong role, both on oversight, but also on the power of the purse as well. So just making sure that EPA isn't forgotten and that this stuff isn't ignored, because there's going to be a lot of stuff going on. As you know, it's hard to pick any given day what to focus on, and which is why I appreciate you even taking the time here to call this out.
Well, first, thank you for saying that, Jeremy, and we're going to have you back again because what you do is an ongoing. It's not a one. We talk about this one time. This is an ongoing thing. And I said earlier, as a little kid, mom and daddy always saying, turn that light off or do this or do that. Little things, and they weren't necessarily thinking about it from a perspective of the environment. They were just like it made common sense. Fast forward to where we are now. I applaud the work that you and your great team. You guys have got a great staff there that's doing the work that a lot of people that we need to have done in terms of advocacy. So I applaud you there. One of the things that you just said that can't be left aside is pushing our elected officials. And you said you used the words educating Congress. a lot of folks are new to Congress, and they don't really know what's happening there. How do we help our citizenry continue to educate and push our elected officials?
Yeah, it's a key part. It's a key part of being a citizen. It's an incredible opportunity. I worked in the United States Senate, and seeing the power of constituent voices. There's a couple of different ways of doing it. One is you can call up the switchboard or go online the web and find your member of Congress and call the office and let them know that you're worried about the environment, public health, and EPA. You can do outreach that way. An even stronger opportunity is members come home and they do town hall meetings, they do town hall calls, other ways that they interact individually. And anytime you get a chance to actually talk to a member directly, that's really significant when they hear what's on people's mind. It keeps them in touch and the pulse. And, those are also really great opportunities. But there are a number of, organizations out there that will direct you to the member of Congress, and or you can just call the DC switchboard. And once you find out, make sure you know who your member is and give them a call.
Jeremy Symons from the Environmental Protection Network. We greatly appreciate you being with us. How can folks find you and maybe even get involved with the work that you guys are doing?
Yeah, just check out environmentalprotectionnetwork.org for our latest news and updates. We're in the press all the time. Our volunteers, as I said, scientists, and regulatory experts, enforcement, former enforcement officers keeping an eye on polluters. They're there to say, what's really going on. Unfortunately, we're going to see a lot of disinformation, so check out the website.
Absolutely. Love to have you back again because your work is so important to all of us, and we thank you, Jeremy, for being with us this morning. Stay strong, brother. I know it's going to be a hard fight, but we're here to back you up as much as we can.
Well, that means a lot. We appreciate it, and have a happy Thanksgiving.
You too. Be well. Bye now. All right, guys, we'll take a quick break. 773-763-9278. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Choose Views with Richard Chu on WCPT 820 AM, where facts matter. Take it away, Richard.
Hey, guys, welcome back to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. Great having two guests with us back-to-back. We had Jeffrey Dillard, also known as Janeff the Poet. That's Janeff, the Poet. And from the Environmental Protection Network, Jeremy Symons, Senior Advisor. Listen, guys, like I say all the time or often, just trying to make things better for you and keep you plugged in. The work that Jeremy is doing is significant because we all, as he said at the opening, we all have to breathe air. And we drink water and all the other things that are sustenance items to us, basic items that we want to have in the best shape possible. And when it comes to corporate polluters, we can't take any chances in that space. We've given up way too much space over the years. And, we talk about this from the perspective of what's going to help I don't know anybody in a red state that wants to drink nasty water. I don't know anybody in a red state that wants to walk out and be breathing in a cloud of pollution. So they can hate Mexicans, Latinos, Asians, blacks, the LGBTQ community, all they want to. But when they walk their behinds out every day, you would hope that they want to breathe some fresh air. You would hope that they want to drink some clean water. You would hope that the food that they're eating is not polluted because of runoff waters from improper disposal. You would hope that the person in a red state would think that same way. So we want to get behind the folks like Jeremy who are doing that kind of elbows deep work to make sure that our environment is as best we possibly can make it. Some of the things that we all can do I talked about this earlier, and I can repeat it again, that are just sort of everyday easy things that any of us can do. Turn the lights off in a room if you're not going to be in there. Run the water more efficiently. I'm always trying to check myself in that space. Don't sit with the car idling. And if it's brutally cold out, then, that's kind of a different situation. I get that. But if you're just sitting with the car idling, don't do that. You don't have to top off your gas tank. That's also a small little thing that I learned years ago is not necessary. When it clicks, it means it's full. And that spillage is one of the things that can impact the environment. And think about the thousands of gas stations all over the country where people are topping off. So little things like that. And make sure that you are doing the best you can to dispose of the things that you can dispose of in a proper way. And if you don't know, ask someone. And little things like that. And you can stop and say, this is the thing that I learned from a dear friend of mine that's since passed away, that he used to say to me, Chew, ask yourself this question. Is what you're doing going to be good for the environment or not good for the environment? Something as simple as that. And it's always stayed with me that he said that. He's like, just ask yourself that question. And I've tried to do that. So with regard to what Jeremy was talking about, also with communicating with our elected officials, get to know who they are. If you don't know now, first of all, I would just go online and Google the list of every U.S. senator and every member of the House of Representatives, every governor, and then who your state legislators are. And from that, you would then keep that list readily available. Hell, you should have a binder now of who our elected officials are. That's a tool that can help strengthen the work that we got to do. Just go online and print them all out and put them into a 3-ring binder, so you know who they are. Get the numbers so you don't have to dig. Have it ready for you. Have it ready so that when you need to make those phone calls, you can do it. That's empowering yourself in this game that we're about to get into, and be bold about it. Be proud. I got a list of the 535. I got to know who's in the administration, have their phone numbers and email addresses. Print that stuff's all public information. Just print it out. Who the governors are of all 50 states. And who the state legislators are. Why is that important to have? And it'll take you an hour to put together. Is because when something jumps off, you should be able to say, I'm going to send them an email. Turn the page and go, that's where their email is. Boom, I'm sending it to them. I'm going to call their office. That's something that you don't have to. You could spend $10 on a 3-ring binder and the insert pages. And Alex is laughing at me because he's like, that's Richard again. But seriously, that's going back to what Jeremy said. That's how you're able to take action. Seriously. That's the stuff that you can do. That's the easy stuff, y'all. And we'll talk about that again. But as we wrap up, I've got a quick clip I want you guys to hear. It's kind of my, today's little positive story about something that took place with regard to a baker. So my man Alex is going to play that for us.
This woman received a $16,000 order from Tesla for 4,000 pies, but was left speechless by what happened next. This is Voa Hangi Rasetranera. She is the owner of a small bakery in Willow Glen, California. One day, she received a surprising phone call from someone at Tesla. They wanted to order 4,000 mini pies for a Black History Month event. At first, Voa thought it might be a prank. Her bakery is quite small, and she wondered why a big company like Tesla would choose her. After verifying the details and receiving a confirmation email, Voa Hangi realized the order was real. After confirming the $16,000 order, she bought extra ingredients and told her staff they would need to work overtime to complete the large order. However, just as they were finishing up after 5 days of intense work, Tesla called and canceled the order at the last minute. Voa Hangi was shocked and posted her experience on social media. Her story quickly went viral. The next morning, her bakery was flooded with customers supporting her, and everything sold out within a few hours. She even had to close the bakery temporarily just to be able to fill even more orders for the next few days.
So, why is that story important? It's about doing good for your fellow person, your fellow citizen, fellow man and woman. A bad situation that could have gone sideways and potentially put her out of business, but the citizenry stepped up and said, "Nah, we're not going to let that happen." And it wasn't about partisan politics necessarily. It was about people helping out other folks. Just like yesterday, the postal worker out in Aurora, Illinois, who saw an older gentleman fall down who was out walking his dog and stopped his truck, went back, found him, helped him, and found his family and built a new relationship because he did something that was positive to help another person. And this situation with this baker. Bad situation that could have gone even further sideways, but the community stepped up and said, nah, not on our watch. We're not going to let that happen. And surpassing race, gender, culture, it came down to community. And at the end of the day, I think that going back to what Jeremy spoke of, and to some extent what poet Janet spoke of, is it's about finding ways to raise your game and raising your game to help others that are around you. Because at the end of the day, we all are in some role of service. So I just wanted to try to end today's show with yet another thing to be grateful about and to be thankful for, and to be able to help people that are in maybe your immediate circle, but sometimes not necessarily. They may be in the broader circle that we live in. So I take my role here seriously in bringing you the information and the news and the stories, but I also take it seriously as a spot to be an advocate, to keep us positive and to keep us strong as we continue to go forward. So thank you guys for being with us today. Thanks to my man Alex for keeping us on the rails as always. But at the end of the show, as we always say, guys, take a deep breath and make your life count. We'll see you tomorrow.